Hi everyone, it's Evelyn from Twin Flames 3344. There's quite a bit I wanted to go over tonight. I'm not going to do my usual formal read. I did pull a few cards for you and I'm going to tell you about that in a little while. I wanted to review some of the things and illuminations that I've had since the Lionsgate portal on August 8th. And for those of you who want to give me feedback in the comments, I hope that all of this makes sense to you, but these are the downloads that I got over the past few days. The energies have been very intense, and I've certainly had my moments. On Lionsgate, on the 8th, I had posted a video that day. After I posted my video, 2 birds hit my window, and I went to go look to see if they were okay, and there were actually 2 different species of birds who had been hit into the window, and they were both shaken off their heads at the same time. It was really funny, and they were right next to each other, but they were 2 totally different species coming in together. It was the strangest thing, okay? And I immediately got, when they hit the window, that we hit the glass ceiling. Okay. I went out back because I go out and sit in the sun for a bit and meditate. And I saw some things I didn't like in my meditation that day. And a little bird came really close to me under the table and started yelling at me, like really loud. He was really cute. And I felt it was like, he was representing the masculine, yelling at me because I wasn't yelling at my twin, but there was something I'd seen in my meditation that was uncomfortable for me, so I was having a little bit of negativity toward that. And then the bird came and yelled at me, and right after that I felt like also that my twin had seen the video I had posted earlier. That evening I felt a significant right brain energy come in. And right after that, I ended up watching the movie adaptation about twin brothers and their shadow aspects. So that was very related. And then at 11:46 that night, and 46 keeps coming up, and that's the 6 of Cups, I was looking at cards on the table that I had done, and I felt my twin looking through my eyes and in my forearms, just staring at the sun card only. So then on August 10th, I woke up that morning and I noticed this picture behind me. Okay, this is something I made in like junior high school, and I used to draw those flowers and the Star of David all the time, and I use a lot of colorful markers and things like that to color them in. But there was something that was standard for me that I drew my whole childhood, and I hadn't noticed that until that morning when I got up on the 10th. This picture is sitting across from my bed, so when I wake up every morning, I basically is looking me right in the face. And I didn't realize there's a Merkaba in it, the flower of life, except it's got 8 petals as opposed to 6. And it's like the grid and the portal. And it's all in this picture. And I'd had it framed in the past 2 years during my journey because I came across it when cleaning out my parents' stuff, because we'd been moving them from place to place with my mother's Alzheimer's. And I didn't notice it until the 10th when I woke up. So it's very significant to me. It reminded me of what I used to draw, because I drew for hours in my room growing up, and a lot of what I drew was that flower, and I didn't even realize what the flower was until recently, in listening to some and reading some other things about the flower of life and the grid. So I wondered about the flower I drew as a child, because it was 8 petals as opposed to the 6, which is in the flower life grid that fits together perfectly and symmetrically with all equal petals. But I'm wondering to myself, well, why did I draw 8 petals then, if this was me already knowing what I knew? And so I went on to try to draw the 8 petals to see how it would fit together. Let's see if I have it here. And they did, it's just the petals, none of the petals could be the same length. I don't know if you can see this, but that's what I ended up getting with my 8 petals. So they couldn't all be the same length. There always had to be variation, which was very profound to me. That in order to have this grid, it couldn't be perfect. There had to be variation within it, which was like bringing up to me the difference between us living here on Earth and the other dimensions. Here, there must be variation. That basically brings up the idea about the real beauty is in imperfection, not perfection. That imperfection is the real beauty in all of us. I also received on the 10th this magazine cover. You see it? It's titled Summer of Love, and it's a 50-year anniversary from 1967 to 2017. It's got Saturn, it's got the stars, it's got the Fool. I mean, he could be a star, but he looks like the Fool to me. It's got the rainbow colors, right? And there's the spirits, our masters and guides above us. Okay, and I always, being into the numbers, identify the numbers. And of course, we all see 2017 as the star card, right, for the 17. 67 is the Knight of Pentacles, who is very methodical. It's really a workhorse. It's someone who goes forward very surely and slowly and methodically, but very successful in the end. Which is really more like Capricorn energies. Whereas now, we're more in Aquarian energies, under the star, which is about the self as opposed to the institution. So I thought that that cover was pretty cool. And that it was the summer of love for us, right? So the whole first week of August, I was working on a song. I had written a poem for my father's memorial service back in November, and I started working on a song using the words from that poem. So I was getting back into my creative process because I haven't touched my keyboard really since October. Also on the 10th, the sexual energy was very intense. I literally felt like, my clothes were just going to drop off of me. It was like really intense. And I'd noticed that was on the 8th and the 10th. And I had noticed it coming up for some other people online too, those energies. And they didn't have to say anything. It was just the way they were presenting was very sensual. And I ended up having to do a lot of 3D paperwork, normal stuff that I haven't had to do in a while, which brought up a purge for me that night. So I definitely had a bit of crying that night of the 10th. And then on the 10th and 11th, it was weird, 214 kept coming up. And I'm like, well, what is it about 214? Well, it's Valentine's Day. It came up 3 different times, and 2 of them were the length of phone calls on 2 different days, back to back. and then an email that I was prompted to open, the time inside the email was 2:14. I also noticed when doing cards that day on the 11th, there was a card where the masculine is working with crystals, and so that stood out to me as very significant, that the masculines are working with crystals. So I don't know if it's the grid or other kind of crystalline work. I also found things that I had lost when looking for something else. So think about that. Finding something you've lost when looking for something else. So basically telling you to focus on other things in your life, because you'll find the things that you want and need when you focus on something else. And I had a card conversation that I do sometimes with my twin. And what I got from it to talk about as being a messenger of truth were the topics of blind faith, sexual frustration, and broken hearts. There's some processing I've been doing on my own, and what was coming up was the masculines and even outside of our dynamic, just general masculines that we've known before, who may be coming forward, or someone's has intentions to get to know you better, or reaching out on Facebook or that kind of thing. It brought up old situations of teasing women for attention, and how being the charmer is actually lying, that being friendly and conversational is not the same as flirting. And so I was guided to look up a few definitions, and this led me to something else. So I'm not thinking find my definitions. All right. I think I went too far. Oh, here we go. So that prompted me to look up the definition of flirting. Flirting is, by definition, behave as though attracted to or trying to attract someone, but for amusement rather than with serious intentions. Trifle with, toy with, tease, lead on, to move erratically, to behave amorously without serious intent, to show superficial or a casual interest or liking, to come close to reaching or experiencing something. And that prompted me to look up salesman, who's just one who sells. So then I looked up sell. To deliver or give up in violation of duty, trust, or loyalty, and especially for personal gain. I was very surprised about that definition. Sell. To deliver or give up in violation of duty, trust, or loyalty, and especially for personal gain. Betray. To give up property to another for something of value, especially foolishly or dishonorably. To give into the power of another. To dispose of or manage for profit instead of in accordance with conscience, justice, or duty. To develop a belief in the truth, value, or desirability, gain acceptance for, or to impose on, and cheat is listed as a synonym. So the reason I looked up salesman is because flirtation makes me think of a salesman, because a salesman that's his job, is basically to entice people. So that's the definition that came up for sell. Then I looked up heartbroken. Overcome by sorrow was the only definition. And then I looked up separation. division, a point, line, or mean of division, an intervening space, cessation of cohabitation of a married couple by mutual agreement or judicial decree, by force, or termination of contract. But when you're talking about two intensely strong magnets, it's very difficult to separate those. Then I was led to look up addiction. Compulsive need, withdrawal, of something that's known to be harmful. And that was basically an abbreviation of that definition. And then I was guided to look up marriage. Consensual contract recognized by law. An institution, or an intimate or close union. And I'm wanting to understand this because I'm wanting to really understand the difference between marriage and union. Is either one of them really what we're talking about here at all? And in marriage, the definition they use, consensual. If you break that down, it's sensual con. Okay? So that's a lie, basically. A sensual con. And then commitment, an agreement, engagement, something pledged. The state or an instance of being obligated or emotionally impelled. Obligated. Is that something that you want? To be an obligation? Union. An act or instance of uniting or joining two or more things into one. Intercourse. Combination. Junction. Something that is made one. Any of various devices for connecting parts. And that made me think, well, but we're not unconnected. We're already one. So is union really what we are? And then I looked up freedom. Absence of need, or absence of necessity, coercion, restraint. Liberation, or restriction, liberation, ease, facility, and outspoken or frank. And these words all translate into absence of necessity is need. Absence of coercion is absence of manipulation. So absence of need, manipulation, and then constraint or restriction is control. So freedom is absence of need, manipulation, or control. Liberation, ease, facility. And then outspoken and frank is the truth. And then bold means no fear. So freedom is need, absence of need, manipulation, and control. It is truth without fear. And then one. The definition of one. Being a single unit or thing. And what I was guided to was just being a single unit. A being. Then I looked up human. There is no definition for human. The definition talks about human things, but it doesn't tell you what a human is. So I looked up humanity. Compassionate, sympathetic, generous, humane. And then the humanities. which I thought that was odd, because in the humanities, they categorize the humanities as human constructs, like philosophy, arts, and languages, as opposed to natural processes of physics, chemistry, anthropology, or economics. They consider them natural, but they don't consider the arts, language, creativity as being natural. They're calling them human constructs. And then I looked up twin flame, which of course is not in the dictionary. So I looked up the definition of twin. Two offspring at birth, closely related or resemble each other, a compound crystal composed of two adjoining crystals or parts of crystals of the same kind that share a common plane of atoms. Did you know that? I'm going to say that again. A twin, one of the definitions, is a compound crystal composed of two adjoining crystals or parts of crystals of the same kind that share a common plane of atoms. So those were my definitions. It made me think about a lot of what we truly are, and I would love your feedback and what these, if anything, these definitions brought up for you. What thoughts came up for you? So again, there was some purging. On the 12th, I did another full day of 3D paperwork type of things from 11 till 5, which I hadn't done in a while. It was a lot of work. And that's when I had drawn that 8-petal flower to see how that would work in a grid. But that night, I did have another purge. I think that all that, the 3D work is bringing up these purges in me. I kind of went back to process in the beginning of the meeting of the twin. So what actually goes wrong in the 3D? And what happens is you fall in love, the problem being fall. And I'd done cards at 11:11 a.m. that morning that showed a mirroring of, sometimes that comes up in the cards where you'll see two cards, one's upside down and one's right side up, right above each other or below each other in a vertical line. And it looks exactly like a mirror. And this was an unusual one, but that's what I saw in it. It was the Hierophant mirrored by the Queen of Cups reversed, which is saying that the mirror of marriage is extreme emotional sorrow. So to be apart from marriage is to be in extreme emotional sorrow. And then my illumination. My codependency, since we're talking about codependencies and all these different codependencies, what is the devil? All the different addictions. It doesn't matter what the addiction is. It's all about pain. The codependency, the addiction is pain. It's all the same. The 4 and the 5 of Cups. The 4 of Cups is about not appreciating what you have already. You know, it's the 3 cups in front of you and another one being offered to you from God. But it's still not enough because it's not what you want. It's not what you see. You're still bored with everything that's being offered. You're feeling sorry for yourself. If you think about this, after the 3 of Cups, which is celebration, it's the coming together aspect, there's a time of purging, okay? Because you just had celebration, all these positive feelings and coming together of building, right? Co-creating. Then you come to the 4 of Cups, which is the feeling sorry for yourself, and then the 5 of Cups, which is mourning or grieving. All right, so you're purging during that time. It's the purification process to come to the 6 of Cups, which is the children in the garden. It's the twins. The purification. That's the purified result of the purging, is the beauty and innocence of the children. So the purge is necessary to purify. Going through the pain instead of avoiding it in order to release it and purify. Pain is a call for attention. It's a need for healing. So when you feel pain anywhere in your body, it's not something to avoid. Like people, if you get pain in your knee or something from working out, people still continue to work out. It's the body telling you something, that you need to focus on this part of your body. So when we purge and we're having pain in our heart, it's because it's our heart telling us it needs attention. It needs healing. It needs us to go down and clear our wounds. Okay. So this all came up because I do numerology, and for some reason the life lesson numbers came up, and the 4 of Cups is my life lesson number, which is 44, the number of Atlas. And I realized that I always knew the life lesson number was very important. Obviously, it's your life lesson, right? But it's actually the key that cracks your code. Then I heard part 1 is done, that part 2 comes in 2 quick parts. I went out into the sun to meditate. There were 2 butterflies playing, and there's been a lot of 2s coming in. I always go out, when I'm out on the deck, I'll see 2 birds or 2 butterflies playing. It's almost always in 2s. So I went out to meditate, and in my meditation, it was not a long one, I saw a lashy eye popping through a triangle. And I immediately got, and it was a lashy eye. And for me, the lashy eyes have to do with, well, it's what you see actually if you were to image Reiki energy. They look like eyelashes. But it also has to do with universal connections, like the spider web. It has to do with connections. So what I got from this eye popping through the triangle was see beyond the divine triangle. Then I got up to come in, and I noticed a plant that was a wedding shower gift that had 3 butterfly sticks in it. And I realized there was 3 butterflies in my plant. So I took one out and put it in another plant to go beyond the triangle. And this led me to more assessment of the triangle. Now, the divine triangle isn't just the divine triangle. The numerology book that I learned from is called the Divine Triangle. And it's based on the Pythagorean theorem. Pythagoras did numerology. And what I got immediately, and it was like a spark, was that you only need a spark to co-create, but then only 2 is needed. Okay? So co-creation then led me to the idea of the triangle and the Bermuda Triangle, and reminded me of when I went to Bermuda with my children. We went out on one of those glass-bottom boats over the triangle, which reminded me again of the glass ceiling, which connected to the birds hitting the window. We're hitting the glass ceiling. The third, the spark, the catalyst, the odd number is just that. It is the change. And how do we abbreviate change? Triangle, right? The expansion, the going out from the body, away from the void, which is the opposite, coming back to the void, the vortex, balance, 0, the even number, the heart. The spark, or the 3, or even the 1, is the tower moment that brings the 2 to 1. We're actually not 1, we're 0, source, love, God. 1 is the original catalyst, spark from source, creating 2. Adam, the initiator, the catalyst, and Eve, the creator, the balance, the zero. A perpetual spark, creation wheel of co-creation. Pain is the space between 0 and 1 and 2. You must go through it to get to the other side. The spark from the 1 dies down after the connection from the 2 to the 3. That's the triangle. So only for a moment is there the 1, 2, 3 connection, the change, the triangle, the spark that leads to co-creation. But once, it's like a tag team. So once the spark initiates the 2 to the 3 and now has touched the 3, the spark now dissipates and goes away. So now you just have 2, the masculine and the feminine. So the spark only comes up for a moment. So this was very profound to me, because I got this all from the life lesson number from numerology. So your life lesson number is based on your date of birth. And if any of you want me to do this assessment for your life lesson number, I'd be happy to. It would just be based on your life lesson number from your date of birth, and I would attribute the card from the tarot that is assigned to that number and explain to you your life lesson, but more than that, what is it that you need to not run from that you probably are? Because we usually avoid what our life lesson number is, because our lesson is to actually be that. And I'll give you an example. Since my life lesson number is 44, and the card that represents that is the 4 of Cups. The 4 of Cups is about being bored. And it's also about receiving all of these so-so offers of love, but not being okay with that, not appreciating what you have. But my lesson is telling me that that's correct. I am not supposed to appreciate so-so love. And I'm supposed to be bored. That's how I become inspired. And that's what I've been learning this past year. Because my whole life has been about go, 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 you know, stress every day, being a single mom and doing everything myself. It wasn't about knowing that my lesson was about not appreciating what I have. It was teaching me to expect more from myself. And it was only when I was able to be in a place and be bored and be forced to be there because of what we had to go through during this journey that I can understand that now. It's like, don't run from the things that you are. Be what you are. It's like, you know, the stuff from when you're very young and you're a child. I used to be bored and just draw in my room for hours. That's who I am. And I'm okay with that. Of course, that's not all I am, but just as an example. So just as for now, if any of you want me to do that assessment of your life lesson number, just a quick thing, and I'll send the picture and the assessment to you in an email. If you send $5 to my PayPal at twinflames3344, just send it to me. I'll have the email, and I'll send you back the card with the assessment of your life lesson number and what you're supposed to understand to be about yourself. Okay? But literally, that was a big deal for me about the life lesson, because I've known my life lesson number since my 20s, and I've always understood that. But it's always hardest to see your own life lesson because you're in it. So, well, if any of that brought up anything for you, let me know. I did pull some cards, and I'm just going to give you the quick summary of what I pulled. The picture of the cards I pulled is on the tag for the video. The underlying energies were all about going forward in communicating the truth using playfulness and domestic harmony. And domestic harmony is blue, and it's 46. And 46 again, tied in perfectly with the Six of Cups that I was talking about. It's the 6, the love, family, and community, working through the 4, which is about stability, building, security, and manifestation on the outside. So coming off as very strong and secure with a very loving heart. And in these cards, the feminine is standing in judgment between the messenger of truth and false messages. Is she being judged by others, or is she actually judging? It could be both. It depends on your situation. The masculine is being called to action, to drop everything and make an effort to change their relationship. He is struggling with what to say in order to go forward in growth and leave the past in the past. And the numerology cards that came up were effort and relationship change. They were blue and yellow, so it's all about the solar plexus chakra and the throat chakra, so we're moving up. Because before, everything that was coming up before were the root and sacral chakras, and now it's moving up to the we have solar plexus and the throat chakra in this one. Okay, and the relationship change again is number 56, and effort is 13. So, yeah, just wanted to make sure about that. So 13 is a 4, so that brings up that stability thing again, but it's also, 13 is death, it's about transformation. So it's making an effort to transform in relation to a relationship change. And 56. And 56 is the 2 of Swords. Okay, and that's related to, that's the blind faith card. It's taking action in blind faith. But I have to say, in this reading, I didn't pull that many cards, just a few cards, but I did use a few decks. The Ace of Swords came up 3 times. The truth. It's all about the truth coming out. Okay? So thanks for listening. Hope it brought up some thoughts in you. I'd love to hear your comments about my illuminations. And just remember to just be you. Try to stay present. Enjoy. Try to get as much rest as you can. And drink lots of water. And meditate. Go out in nature. And just get out of the house and do something fun. Okay? Focus on something else. Okay? Have an amazing week. I love you guys. I hope you guys are all doing okay. The energies are still really heavy coming into the solar eclipse, but try not to focus on the situation. You know, focus on something fun for yourself. Okay, rise and be loved. Take care, everyone.